Now we come to the next 9.4.40. Once, when the Exalted One dwelt among the Malas near their market town called Uruvela Kappa, and had one morning robed early, taken bowl and cloak, entered Uruvela Kappa for alms, gone his rounds, returned and eaten his meal, he called the Venerable Ananda and said, "Please wait here, Ananda, while I am gone into Mahavana for the midday rest." Let's stop here for a moment. Mahavana means the great grove or the great forest. And normally after eating their meals, the monks go to secluded places, forests. So here the Buddha wanted to go into the great forest. And Venerable Ananda replied, "Yes, Lord." And the Exalted One entered Mahavana for the midday rest and sat down at the foot of a tree. Now the good man Tapusa visited the Venerable Ananda, saluted him and sat down at one side. And so seated he said thus, "We householders, Reverend Ananda, are pleasure seekers, pleasure fond, pleasure doting, pleasure mad, and being so, it seems a real precipice to us, this giving up of all. Yet I have heard, Reverend Sir, that in this Dhamma Vinaya, the heart of every young monk leaps up at this giving up or renouncing, becomes calm, steadfast, and inclined thereto, seeing it is the peace. There, Reverend Sir, is the difference in this Vinaya between and the ordinary person, I mean in this giving up." Venerable Ananda said, "This indeed is a topic for talk, good man. Let us go and see the Exalted One. We will visit him and tell him the matter, and as the Exalted One explains, so we will bear it in mind." "Very well, sir," replied the good man to the Venerable Ananda. And the Venerable Ananda went with the good man Tapusa and visited the Exalted One, saluted and sat down at one side. And the Venerable Ananda told the Exalted One all the good man had said. And the Buddha said, "It is verily so, Ananda, it is verily so. When I was but a being awakening, Ananda, and not wholly awakened, before there was full awakenment, I thought thus, good is the giving up of all, good it is to go apart. But my mind leaped not up, became not calm, steadfast, nor inclined to this giving up, though I saw it is the peace. And I thought, now what's the cause, the reason? Then I thought, the peril of pleasures is not seen by me, is not made much of by me. The advantage of this giving up is not won, is not enjoyed by me. So my mind leaps not up, becomes not calm, steadfast, nor inclined to this giving up, though I see it is the peace. And I thought, if seeing the peril of pleasures I were to make much of it, if winning the advantage of this giving up I were to enjoy it, it would surely happen that my mind would leap up, become calm, steadfast, and inclined to this giving up on seeing it to be the peace." And just stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha is saying that even though when he first renounced, he thought it is good to give up, to go apart, but his mind did not really welcome it, and did not become calm or inclined to this giving up. And he realized that because the danger of sense pleasures was not seen by him. So you can see that it is necessary to see or to realize the danger of sensual pleasures, to see that it leads to a greater craving. If we indulge in sensual pleasures, it leads to a greater craving for it, because it cannot be satisfied. And the Buddha gave a parable in the Majjhima Nikaya about a butcher and a dog. The Buddha said, a hungry dog saw a butcher carving the meat from the bones. So it went near the butcher and sat down there, waiting for the butcher to give him a bone with the flesh. The butcher, after carving up the meat, threw him a big bone without any flesh. And happily the dog carried this bone to one corner and started to chew on it, to gnaw on it. But in spite of chewing and gnawing on the bone, because there was no flesh, the dog was still hungry. And in the same way, the Buddha said, when we indulge in sensual pleasures, it is not something that is satisfying. It is only for a moment it satisfies us, but our desire becomes greater. And sensual desires, the Buddha said, is like a disease. In the Magandhya Sutta, in the Majjhima Nikaya, the Buddha gave a parable of a leper. The Buddha says, this leper is diseased, the flesh is rotting, so there is a terrible itch, which makes him scratch his flesh, the rotting flesh. But the more he scratches the flesh, the more it rots, the more pus comes out, blood comes out, the more foul smelling it becomes. But he has no choice, because the itch is so terrible, that he has to keep on scratching himself until more blood comes out, more pus comes out. In spite of that, he can't stand the itch, which goes to his very bone. So what does he do? He goes to find a burning ember. Takes a burning ember and he burns his flesh, and then that satisfies the itch for a while. And later, he again has to scratch and find some other ember to burn his flesh. But the more he scratches and burns his flesh, the more the flesh oozes blood, more pus develops, more foul smelling it becomes, and the worse his condition becomes. It doesn't become better. So in the same way, when we indulge in sensual pleasures, it is like this disease of the leper. We become more sick, more craving is developed. So that is why suttas are very important. When we listen to suttas and we listen to parables like these beautiful parables like this given by the Buddha, then we understand the nature of sense desires, and we also understand the danger of sense desires. And when we see it, then we are more inclined to renouncing, more inclined to giving up. And the Buddha continued, and presently, Ananda, on seeing the peril or danger, I made much of it. On winning the advantage, I enjoyed it, and my mind leaped up, became calm, steadfast, and inclined to this giving up. On seeing it was the peace. And presently, Ananda, aloof from sense desires, I entered and abode in the first jhana. But as I abode in this abiding, thoughts and distractions of a sensual kind beset me, and it was for me a disease. Just as some ill amounting to a disease might arise in some happy person, Ananda, even so such thoughts and distractions beset me, and it was for me a disease. Stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha is saying, when he tried to practice the jhanas, and he had entered the first jhana, very soon he was distracted with sensual thoughts. Why was the Buddha distracted with sensual thoughts? Because before he renounced, as a lay person, he was from a rich family, and he was surrounded by a lot of slaves, and these there was a lot of female slaves who attended to him like a deva. And he said during the rainy season, he would stay in this big mansion which his father built for him. There were 3 seasons in India, and every season he would stay in a different mansion. And during the rainy season, when it rained a lot, for 4 months he stayed in this big mansion, surrounded by all the female slaves, with no men around. So he enjoyed a lot of sensual pleasures. And because of that, when he became a monk and tried to practice, these sensual memories of sensual desire came and disturbed him. And when he entered the jhanas, the thoughts of the sensual kind distracted him, and he came out of the jhanas. Jhanas are states that we have to practice continually to be able to abide long in them. Otherwise, you enter a jhana for a short while and you just come out of it automatically. Then the Buddha continued, then I thought, what if I were to suppress applied and sustained thought and abide in the second jhana, the third, the fourth jhana, the sphere of infinite space, of infinite consciousness, of nothingness, of neither perception nor non-perception, in the ending of perception and feeling. And presently, Ananda, passing wholly beyond the sphere of neither perception nor non-perception, I entered and abode in the ending of perception and feeling. And I saw by wisdom that the asavas were completely destroyed. And so long, Ananda, as I attained not to, emerged not from these 9 attainments of gradual abidings, both forwards and backwards, I realized not completely as one wholly awakened, the full perfect awakening, unsurpassed in the world with its gods, Maras and Brahmas, on earth with its recluses, Brahmins, Devas and men. But when I attained to and emerged from these abiding suchwise, then wholly awakened, I realized completely in the full awakening, unsurpassed. Then knowledge and vision arose up within me. My mind is released, and this release is unshakable. This birth is final. There is now no more becoming again. That's the end of the sutta. So in this last part, the Buddha is saying that he managed to control his mind and attain all the jhanas, all the 4 rupa jhanas, the 4 arupa jhanas, and finally attain the ending of perception and feeling, cessation of separation, destroyed the asavas. And the Buddha has said in this last part, so long, Ananda, as I attained not to, emerged not from these 9 attainments of gradual abidings, both forwards and backwards, I realized not completely as one wholly awakened, the full perfect awakening, unsurpassed in the world. So the Buddha said, as long as he did not attain these 9 gradual abidings, namely the jhanas, all the you can call them all the 9 jhanas, both forwards and backwards. He did not attain full awakening, full enlightenment. But after he had attained all the 9 jhanas, forwards and backwards, then only he attained the supreme enlightenment, which shows the importance of attaining the jhanas. But however, it doesn't mean that psychic power, some people confuse jhanas with psychic power. They think that by attaining jhanas, automatically one attains the psychic powers. This is not so, because we find that Venerable Sariputta, in the Majjhima Nikaya, it is stated that Venerable Sariputta has attained all the jhanas. However, Venerable Sariputta has none of the psychic powers. So you must not confuse the jhanas with psychic powers. The next sutta is 9.4.42. Once when the Venerable Ananda was dwelling near Kosambi in Gosita Park, the Venerable visited him, and after exchanging the usual polite talk, sat down at one side. And so seated, he said to the Venerable Ananda, "This reverend sir was said by the Deva Panchala Chanda. From whose escape he found, quick sage, who woke to jhana, awakened, seer, adept, withdrawn. Now what, sir, is the news, and what the way of escape declared by the exalted one?" And the Venerable Ananda replied, "These 5 strands of sense desire, reverend sir, are called the news by the exalted one. Forms cognized by the eye, longed for, alluring, pleasurable, lovely, bound up with passion and desire, sounds cognized by the ears, tastes by the tongue, contacts by the touch, longed for, alluring, pleasurable, lovely, bound up with passion and desire. These 5 strands of sense desire are called the noose by the Exalted One. Consider, Reverend Sir, the monk who, aloof from sense desire, enters and abides in the first jhana. Thus far, Reverend Sir, in one particular did the Exalted One declare a way of escape from the noose. And there too is the noose. And what is there? In so far as thought applied and sustained is not ended, that there is the noose. Now consider, sir, the monk who enters and abides in the second jhana, the third, the fourth, in the sphere of infinite space, of infinite consciousness, of nothingness, of neither perception nor non-perception, in the ending of perception and feeling, and sees by wisdom that the asavas are completely destroyed. Thus far, and with no further particular, did the Exalted One declare a way of escape from the noose. That's the end of the sutta. So here, the monk is asking the Venerable Ananda, what is the noose? The noose is like the rope that is tied around one's neck. When you're going to hang somebody, you put a noose around his neck, this rope around his neck. So, the Venerable Ananda is saying, the 5 strands of sense desire, forms, sounds, smells, taste, and touch. These are the things that bind us like a noose on around our neck. We are caught by Mara. Mara has put a rope around our neck, and we are in control of Mara because of the 5 senses. And the way of escape that the Buddha has declared is the first jhana, the second jhana, third, fourth jhana, sphere of infinite space, of infinite consciousness, nothingness, neither perception or non-perception, and in the ending of perception and feeling. These are the ways of escape from Mara's noose. And this is another sutta that shows how important the jhanas are if we want to escape from the noose that Mara has put around our neck. So definitely the jhanas are the teachings of the Buddhas, and in suttas the Buddha has declared that the way of escape or liberation from samsara and from Mara is by attaining the jhanas. Because from the jhanas, when we attain the jhanas, the 5 hindrances are abandoned. And when the 5 hindrances are abandoned, then we see things clearly as they really are. And from there we get insight, wisdom. The next sutta is 9.5.43. Body witness, he is called Sir. And as to what has the body witness been declared by the Exalted One? Consider, sir, the monk who, aloof from sense desire, enters and abides in the first jhana, and to the extent of that sphere abides with body attuned to it. Thus far, sir, in one particular has the body witness been declared by the Exalted One. And similarly for the second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana, sphere of infinite space, infinite consciousness, nothingness, neither perception nor non-perception, and the ending of perception and feeling. So here this sutta is talking about body witness, kaya sakin. Kaya sakin is a person who has, sometimes it is translated as testified with the body, but probably you can also call it body witness. He has become a witness with his body, which means usually this person, body witness, kaya sakin, is a person who has developed the jhanas, who has developed concentration as his main point. His strength is in attaining the jhanas, and this is one of the Aryans, one of the 7 types of Aryans mentioned in the Kittagiri Sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya. And this body witness is not yet an Arahant. He is a Seka, one who is possibly a Sakadagamin, second fruition person, or a third fruition person, or a fourth path attainer, but not yet a fourth fruit attainer, not yet an Arahant. So this is the body witness. The next sutta is 9.4.44. Liberated by wisdom, Panya Vimutto. Liberated by wisdom, he is called Sir. And as to what has the one liberated by wisdom been declared by the Exalted One? And the answer, who aloof from sense desire enters and abides in the first jhana, and by wisdom understands it. Thus far, sir, in one particular has the one liberated by wisdom been declared by the Exalted One. Similarly, for the second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana, sphere of infinite space, sphere of infinite consciousness, nothingness, neither perception nor non-perception, ending of perception and feeling. Now, so this sutta is talking about the Panya Vimutto. Panya Vimutto is the one liberated by wisdom. And this refers to an Arahant. Just now I mentioned Aryans, mentioned in the Kittagiri Sutta. Two of them are Arahants. One is this one, liberated by wisdom. And liberated by wisdom means a person attains the jhanas as mentioned in this sutta. He attains he has attained the jhanas. But when he is liberated, at the moment of liberation, he does not use the jhanas. For example, Venerable Sariputta had attained all the jhanas. And one day when the Buddha was talking to an external ascetic, Venerable Sariputta stood by the side of the Buddha and took a fan and was fanning the Buddha. And he was fanning the Buddha, he was listening to the conversation between the Buddha and the external ascetic. And when he was suddenly he attained insight, and he attained liberation. So such a person is called liberated by wisdom, because at the moment of liberation, the faculty of wisdom is strongest. He's not using jhana at that moment. He's using wisdom. That's why he is said to be liberated by wisdom. But even here, as is mentioned in this sutta, even one who is liberated by wisdom still needs the first jhana, or the second, or the third, or the fourth jhana, or the other jhanas, the arupa jhanas. So jhanas are always needed for liberation. But it is interesting here that even a person who attains the first jhana can attain liberation, but this is not always the case. Usually the Buddha mentions that the fourth jhana is needed. But sometimes in certain persons whose faculty of wisdom is very strong, even with the first jhana, they can become an Arahant. The next sutta is 9.5.45. Liberated both ways, he is called Sir. And as to what has the one liberated both ways been declared by the Exalted One? Consider, sir, the monk who, aloof from sense desire, enters and abides in the first jhana, and to the extent of that sphere abides with body attuned to it, and by wisdom understands it. Thus far, sir, in one particular, has the one liberated both ways been declared by the Exalted One. Similarly, the etc. enters and who with the stilling of applied and sustained thought, enters and abides in the second jhana, the third jhana, fourth jhana, and the other jhanas, and abides with body attuned to it, and by wisdom understands it. And then, in that particular, has the one liberated both ways been declared by the Exalted One. So here the sutta is talking about the Ubato Bhaga Vimutto. one who is liberated by both ways. This one who is liberated by both ways means that he is an arahant, liberated by wisdom and liberated by mind. If you compare with other suttas, you find that this person is an arahant liberated by wisdom and by mind. Now in certain suttas, he is also said to be one liberated by mind. Chitta vimutto, liberated by mind. These are all the same. Liberated both ways, liberated by wisdom and by mind, and liberated by mind. These are all the same. Arahant. And what it means is that this person, at the moment of liberation, he is liberated by wisdom and by mind at the same time. What it means is this person attains the jhanas, and after attaining the jhanas, he used that still mind to, like the Buddha, contemplate the past lives. The Buddha attained the three knowledges. First knowledge was the recollection of past lives. The second one was using the Deva eye, seeing beings dying and being reborn according to karma. That's the second knowledge. The third one is a contemplation of the Four Noble Truths. And from there he attains arahanthood. So this one, liberated both ways, is a one who attains the jhanas and using that still state after the jhanas to contemplate and attain liberation. In other words, during meditation, a person who attains the jhanas during meditation and becomes an arahant is one who is liberated both ways, different from the one who is liberated by wisdom, who just listens or contemplates without attaining the jhanas and attains liberation.